of Sand by Geetanjali Shree. Translated by Daisy Rockwell. Part 2. Sunlight.
Chapter 42. Why did Ma fall? This question sparked a furore, which doesn't mean that everyone sat around a table and discussed it. Accusations arose behind backs, then slid around, ending up before bellies. Beta's thinking eventually became that he, no, she, no, he, no, she, was the reason for the fall, meaning Rosie Bua. Behaving absurdly with Ma, the sound of their whistling, quite tuneful, too, all the time from the tomb, which they began to do with increasing frequency and tunefulness, so the whole neighborhood could hear and wonder what on earth was going on. So Ma really was bound to fall sooner or later. Rosie Bua can even scold Ma and is constantly with her and brings a tiny sprig of mint in exchange for wolfing down their food. Amma has got a brand new atmosphere of freedom to lead her own life of her own free will. So the poor thing, in her simplicity, allows Rosie to plunder from her with equal freedom. All the rubbish of the neighborhood comes here, and they design and make things, and it's obvious who is profiting and who is losing in that equation. Amma does too much. She is bound to feel the strain, a complete setup for a fall. Earlier, too, it was because of Rosie that Amma got into all the mess in the first place, got lost, and was all in pieces for so long. It was probably Rosie who had told her that many people had their eye on the Buddha that Bade himself had visited. We can sell it for lakhs. Betty had already asked for it, and others were also noticing that Ma was busy giving away all her worldly goods. By chance, if someone expresses a desire for it, you, Baji, she calls her Baji, are hardly likely to be able to say, "No, let me keep it safe for you." And Amma would have agreed, simple soul that she is, not knowing her own frailty, and went who knows where, into a slum or a hut or some such. We go out, go to work, but Amma always stayed home, all for her Buddha. She wandered off into some germ-infested area. Ever since then, some weakness has taken hold. It isn't necessary for an infection to show, and I brought her here. I didn't allow it to become full-blown, but she came with weakened immunity. There was no other advance plan for her to come here. Otherwise, perhaps she would have told me to bring the Buddha and keep it safe for her. Now it's come here, but not for me, it seems. I am the thief, and Rosie is the guard. She really made a laughing stock of me, and she still is, and cleverly making a profit too. Even though Ma's the one supplying all the ideas, and doing so much bending, walking, pulling, cutting, swinging at the edge, and she has started to wobble and hobble, it's only natural she toppled over. KK did not agree that anyone could be blamed for this, for any reason, thereby reducing his already low current sex appeal. Why did he say for any reason? Betty fumed. Any reason was not where the blame was falling. And what exactly did he mean by any reason? At first he tried to answer this. Then he admitted defeat and threw down his remained card. That is, if your sister-in-law were to say such a thing, how would you react? So that would mean something then. Why not? Said his current ex, looking sarcastic. And indeed, Bahu probably was saying some such thing. Which was a correct guess. Bahu was indeed saying just that. That if you send Ma among people who have such a bizarre lifestyle, a fall is bound to happen. So was Bahu blaming Bade as well? It seemed so. You didn't even go yourself to see how she was doing? How would you know? True, it was meant to be just during the home shifting process. But then to leave her there so long. There's less to eat there, too much to drink, less medicine, more booze. She gets nothing on time. The fridge is always empty. You have to double over to pick anything up. Take a single step and you trip over a wall. And if you need to get fruit from the fruit bowl, you have to lunge forward on the swing and grab it. And you're likely to fall at any moment. Your sister's furniture is made of grass and twigs, which one can get for free, and it fills the house with dust and dirt. And all the trash from outsiders is handed to Ma so she can make stuff for someone else to sell. How did it benefit anybody to send Ma there? She's there, but we are the ones who have to come running. We have to take her to the doctor. We have to order the medicine from CGHS. But who takes credit? Betty. Even the tea Amma gets up and makes herself. She didn't have to get up for any reason. She ruled from her bed. She ordered whatever she wanted. Her word was law. Now it's also spare and bare. And that too she has to organize by herself. And at her age, because at that home, if you can even call it a home, there's a mistress who's busy conquering the world. She has handed Amma over to the servants. And who really knows what sort they are? Really, how could she not fall? And we are the ones defamed as though we turned her out. When I myself said she can't stay at Betty's home, whether she is unmarried, divorced, alone, whatever. Every day my son explains on the phone that you can't bring Ma back by force. Betty is her daughter, not her enemy. But I feel so anxious. She's her daughter, but she doesn't know how to look after anyone. She's a mess herself, so shabby. When Ma was here, I was worried. And when she isn't, then too. And my son explains that you can't live another person's life. If Ma falls, it's not your fault. But my heart trembles so. And you just sent me or Sid and said, go and have her sign this. You didn't even consider it appropriate to go one time to see for yourself what condition she is in and bring her back. How could I go? Glowered Buddy. He didn't say Amma fell because of the saris. Who says I didn't go and who says I didn't see?
43. Because the truth was that Buddy had gone and seen when the rustling of the leaves had begun to change, because the wind blew restlessly and his mood had followed suit. Everyone remembers that Amma got lost at the very end of winter and was found again in spring. It wasn't easy to figure out how many days had elapsed. Each year at the end of winter, the trees shed their dry leaves and new ones sprout where the old fell out. That is, winter melts into spring. The dry crackling of the upper layer of leaves as they fall and crunch on the earth, and the light breeze in the tiny new leaves underneath, murmuring like soft green grass, sighing above, singing below. What with house change, work change, office change, atmosphere change, Buddy had felt discombobulated. All this changing had flung him crunch on the ground, like so many dry leaves. Amma had disappeared. The leaves dried more. The heart smote more, hurt more. But Ma had been found. The heart sang tenderly. Soft, fine leaves, and bud grew in. He had sent Ma to his sisters for a little while. Those leaves must fall. Let them fall. Those which must grow, let them grow. No one noticed when the leaves changed the season of the heart yet again. When the monsoon was at its peak, the leaves grew fat, hanging heavy on the trees. They hung, dripping sadness. Even when they are quiet, they hang heavy. There's beauty in their fullness, but there's a core of grief, dark and deep. The raga of grief in slow tempo, extremely slow, a despondent alap, a prelude. Or is it a vilap, a lamentation? The superliterate ex-bureaucrat Bade did not understand. He was unable to comprehend the sorrowful raga of the leaves playing in his mind. He drooped.
His wife said, "Everyone ends up like this. The post-retirement malaise. You no longer know how to pass your days and nights. You sit around sucking on the corner of your undershirt." She too is educated, but she does not realize that his melancholy comes from the leaves, which were first buffeted by a harsh wind, then a springy breeze, then it turned damp. Now it is oppressively humid. No one understands the leaf-born wind ragas and how they gesture towards the heart. And what is understanding anyway? No one really gets that. Where does it dwell? In the brain, which plays its tune as we smite our brows? This is what we have been taught. That the rest of our mind and body and soul just hang loose like goop from that jalebi-shaped brain. You're like Alice, and you go missing, and only your brain remains, suspended in the air as a smile. Nose, eyes, lips, neck, shoulder, elbow, knee, ankle, fist, thigh, runny, funny, tummy, back, block, sack. All of it knavish, slavish. All of it clueless, mindless, useless. If only we knew that all our other parts were so much finer than the jalebi brain, the most regal of sweets, compared to our simple, tiny, curly jalebis. They are balushahis, rajbhog, motichur, shrikhand, saffron, halwa, kulfi, basundi. And that silly little jalebi could never grasp all they contain. So understand, if you can, how many brains, hearts, souls you have, all of which hardly exist in that itty-bitty jalebi. And that's why we should be proud of how many moods we each possess. That's why a child can become a Pandit reciting the Veda by heart before the text has even reached his tiny jalebi brain. Vocalists like Bhimsen Joshi and Sarafat and Latafat, both Hussains, understands every sur with every part of their bodies, and they release them into their musical compositions. These are not the capabilities of that gasping, greedy, sluggish, ragtag, snagged jalebi brain. The bandit Dasyu Ratnakar's jalebi was clueless as he mindlessly chanted Mara, Mara, dying, dying. But behold the glory of bhakti worship, that Mara, Mara became Rama, Rama through the subtle vibrations and reverberations of sound and meaning. And thus the dacoit was transformed into the great sage Valmiki. The jalebi is but a bull-headed morsel, hardly capable of any such things. To put it plainly, what is a brain? It's where thinking happens. And what is thinking? It's what is felt, tasted, waved, flaunted, spun. The jalebi imprisoned in our bro cannot do all this. The other limbs and parts and pores do it. It is they that are the mind's eye, the true mind. The jalebi in your skull is simply a warehouse or a godown or a grocery. It's just a place to store stuff. That's all. The brain resident in Bade's knees, wrists, and various other parts and pores as opposed to the one in his skull, and along with his heart, liver, experienced a rustling. He felt morose, despairing sometimes. What should I do? As the breeze blows through the lamenting leaves, a memory comes, but of what he does not recall. Of when Ma was with him in the bungalow before he had retired. When the bell-like breeze played among the tiny leaves, the thought that his might one day torment his mind would never have entered the wildest imagination. What was this itch that made him scratch his head again and again, sit first crossing his knee, and then switching legs, then stretch and spread his arms, searching for something in the void? But he is unaware of all of this. It just happened one day, as he was running an errand at the bank, which was the only sort of errand he left the house for, to put money in his share or, that FD, and chit-chat gossip, lemon tea, prognosticating about politics with the manager, who was his buddy from his working days. And when he was returning in his car after doing all that, he inadvertently turned left onto the street where his sister lived. Well, he hadn't really turned all the way. He had just headed slightly to the left to go back home, and then such and such a street appeared. He did not go to his sister's house. But yes, a little beyond was the home of Jamal, whose engineer's son had been shot in a hate crime at a pub in America the previous week. He thought of going by to offer condolences, as he had already half turned in that direction anyway, lost in thought as he was. But he should have gone to the bathroom before leaving the bank. Well, now he had stopped the car and take a leak along the way. So Bade stopped his car by the green belt and thought, right here in the monsoon dusk. He looked up. The rain could come at any moment, but the last flecks of sunlight were still in the sky. He also noticed that over there was the house where Amma had gone for a bit of change. That one, on the second story, next to that tree. Yes, that balcony. Aha, flower pots. That must be Amma's doing. Beyond that, a light. During monsoon, it comes on early. Someone came out onto the balcony, Bade cowered behind a bush. Amma, in a long gown, taking deep breaths as though inhaling a rich, sweet scent. She was speaking to the pots, to the plants. She examined them, reasoned with them, tickled them with her cane. Then she raised her cane to the sky and said something. Ma did, and laughed. But what if she ever fell over in that slobby burnous? Strange attire indeed. His sister dresses oddly herself. Is she dressing Ma all funny now? Dervishisk, scruffy? Just then Ma turned to go inside, her back to Bade, had given one tantalizing glimpse of herself and disappeared. Bade felt cheated. He locked the car and went to the other side of the street, the side where the house was, near the tree, whose trunk was between the small rocks and whose branches reached out towards that very balcony. Who knows what got into his head, but he climbed onto a rock and jumped into the tree amongst the leaves. There was a traffic jam in his head brain. Since he had no awareness of his other brains, there was nothing to guide his understanding. He was up in the tree, peering inside where the light was on to see better. No one saw his seeing, but he was seen by the crows, whose meeting Bade had disrupted with this game of hide-and-seek and hoppity-skip. Chapter 44. Bade wrongly imagined that Amma was talking to the sky when she waved her cane around. In fact, she was talking to the crows in a menacing tone after the gang had suddenly flown in, cawing above her plants and trees. What is this hooliganism? She scolded. What's with all the noise? Greedy things, the entire group has descended on us. What do you think? I'll throw you some bites? Never. And look here, if a single eyelash of one of my plant goes, I'll pluck your eyes out. I'll twirl this cane like so, and I will turn you into manure and feed you to the plants. And you, what a smart aleck. She flourished the cane. Are you glaring at me? Come, come, she challenged. I'll clap a dog collar on you and turn you into my pet dog. She laughed uproariously at her own joke. Are you a crow or some kind of dog? Oh, I will crow you down. She laughed so hard, Betty came out and Bade dove for cover. And Ma went inside, still not leaning on the cane, swinging it about instead. Observing Ma loudly addressing the heavens was an unpleasant experience for Bade, which he attributed to some sort of sister-related phenomenon arising from Ma's bizarre clothing. Good God! She'll fall. What happened to her saris? Bade was consumed by worry. There was an unpaved street between the second-story flat and the green belt. It was the guard's job to forbid passerby from spitting, urinating, or shitting there. But these days he got his kicks letting young couples wander in alone, then suddenly bursting in upon them, separating them with his staff as though they were two grasshoppers stuck together, and thus he had grown rather lax about other matters. But it could also be that Bade's bureaucrat-style grandeur was weightier than the guard staff, and so the staff-holder could not bring himself to say, "Hey, Mr. Officer, do not spit, pee, shit here." But for the crows, everything had gone awry in terms of their meeting and the air. They had amassed a flock on that day, flying in from far-off lands, through rain, over mountains, through pollution, over buildings. Those who had noticed them would have had wondered what was going on and why the sky was blanketed with black wings. The crows had rallied in huge numbers. The organizers were quite pleased, and a bit of a hurly-burly broke out as they wondered how everyone might be squeezed in. They hadn't considered the need for a loudspeaker, nor even a CCTV. But that wouldn't have been right, as the focus was this: the problem of the spread of pollution in the name of science. So the fatter and more aged crows seated the smaller crows in their laps, like when a kangaroo plops her joeys in her pouch, or two nuts nestle in a shell, or when there are two bananas in one peel, or a double head on one torso. So too, two heads bobbed atop each crow body, sporting four eyes rather than two. The mounds and trees were filled with these two-in-one crows. The trees rustled with wings, as though the crows had thought them naked and rushed to clothe them in crowments. There was a festive air, and even with all the cawing, there were no attacks from outsiders, whether by means of eyes or sticks or unwanted attention. Because in the clamor of urbanism, who really cared about crows anyway? The crow meeting was underway, regarding the horrific problems they were experiencing due to climate change and the science-worshipping humans. There was much cawing as the environmentalist birds pulled their prepared speeches from their wings and read them out. Those who were particularly skilled delivered speeches extemporaneously. The assembled crows cawed approvingly, or shall we say that it would have sounded simply like cow, cow to humans had they been listening, the way every language does to an unfamiliar ear, be it Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, or Morse code. They engaged one another in lengthy debates in their various dialects, and since it's crows we are talking about here, let us set aside politically correct questions such as whether these were actual languages or regional crowlects they spoke. Suffice to say that the heavens echoed with their versions of Bhojpuri, Maithili, Awadhi, and Braj. The era of debate was still extant among the crows. The conversations proceeded boldly. They were not in the habit of shooting point blank at those who put forth their own understanding, whether from their own experience or their own ideals or simple incomprehension. The mass of crows was a sight to see. Old birds, whose blackness had not turned to white, but bore a whitish tinge. High school and college student crows, male, female, all openly debating about how the entire cosmos had been thrown into a muddle. Even our sharp intellects have begun to fail us. We used to know without any help from a barometer, compass, thermometer, agrometer, Google, Twitter, that the rains were advancing and the jungle animals were coming to hunt. The wind won't stop just yet. Babbler birds will not stop babbling. The mouse will turn lion, the cloud a dancer, and so on and so forth. We knew a person just by seeing their face. Which crook will snare you and gobble you up? Which yogi will give a quaff from his water pouch? Now men have destroyed our capabilities by interfering in the natural environment. They rush about with their stethoscopes and telescopes croaking wrathfully, and we can't even be sure of providing for our children anymore. The conversation had turned to El Nino. One young jackanapes, rather bored in his youthful zeal, as well as a bit self-enchanted, asked with curiosity, but also just to rile. Nina who? Nino, corrected the one next to him. El Nino, said another knowledgeable crow. Lay what? Asked the jackanapes, twisting his beak to pronounce it. El, replied the elder crow loudly. Like Al-Biruni, Al-Azhar, jested the jackanapes. Pay attention, don't turn everything into a joke, retorted an elderly lady crow. And just then the featherless, heedless entity arrived and threw a monkey wrench into the proceedings. The shades of evening were deepening in the abated rain when a car stopped and a humanoid got out onto the unpaved road across from the gathering and the crows along the green belt. Said humanoid unzipped his trousers and proceeded to augment the pollution. Hey, blockhead! Jackanapes sat up like he had a mind to hit him. Why have you come here to spread filth? Cow! Array! After he spreads filth, he is heading towards us to chase us away. Jackass! Jackanapes cried again. Just because we picked out our food from rubbish heaps, you think we like garbage and trash? As he yelled, all the other teenage crows got fired up. What this punk doesn't know is we never forget a face. He'll get away this time because our peace sneak parents are chanting Om Shanti Om over here. But show your face anywhere around here in the future. He raised a foot like a clenched fist, brandished his beak, and pretended to execute his eye slicer move in the air. Let's undertake a Swachh Bharat campaign for a clean India, said the son of the meeting's chair. All the office bearers are here. Let's pass the proposal right now. We'll elect some young people and give them cameras so that if anyone spreads filth in public places and disrespects nature, they can take a picture and we can put together another team to print our copies and shower them down and all over the place. So these guys will get embarrassed and cut it out. Not supply these days. Someone cowed morosely. So an I'll do you one better teenage girl crow began to hop about and cried, Let's tie stones to all the photos and bust these losers' heads open when we drop them. 'Cause I love dropping stones on bald guys. It was at this very moment that Buddy jumped onto the hillock and then into the tree, utterly oblivious of the crows rustling amongst the branches. An uproar broke out in which the elders shrieked to the crowd to maintain order and fly up in single file to make sure the elderly and children didn't get jostled. But the worrisome thing was that Jackanapes and his gang were at boiling point, because at the sudden turn of events they had also got startled, and the one who has frightened you automatically becomes the enemy. But also the thing about fear is you don't like to see yourself feeling it, because it makes you feel less awesome. So it's either sink or swim, dude. So imagine this. The tree and hillocks began to bounce with the livid crows, and thence arose voices calling out, Please, everyone, settle down. And those youths who have snatched mobiles, whistles and drums, dumroos, please refrain from playing, blowing, beating, or bleating on them, so that the proceedings can continue quietly. But the crows were stirred up. A whoop arose to rally against it all. Such a cawing broke out. The tree began to shake, like it was dancing the fierce thunder, as though the double heads had that grown on it had decided to perform a ceremony to Shiva. Hey, cow, make your own homes dirty. Why have you snuck into ours to spread filth? Our home is the cosmos and nature, and this wingless community is bent on destroying our home to build their own. If they have such an appetite for suicide, they can go for it. But why drag us into their mess? Where are we supposed to go when they fell our sky and our trees? We had no objection to excrement or urine as long as it was organic. Our trees knew how to separate milk from water, but how it contains poisonous chemicals that burn the roots, the earth, the air, which is what's happening, and we intend to protest all this. There were many presentations that began to burst forth from the mouths of the crows, after that wingless being had moved. Following his P is for pollution ablutions to the tree surrounded by mounds and rocks on which the meeting was taking place. And not only did he jump onto a rock, but he hopped up and landed on a branch of the tree, as though all these double-headed crows were invisible, and he had the right to butt in wherever he wanted to. Surely he looks down on our color too. He has dishonored us. The cawing of the crows transformed into a roar. So what if we are black? We are crows.
हम काले हैं तो क्या हुआ? दिलवाले हैं. And thus their honor was now at stake. You don't care about our business or our lives, and what's more, you don't notice us at all. You don't even see us, not just one, not just two, where every single one of us is invisible for you. It's like we don't even exist. Arre, we are going to watch him. You know how we get together and poke our beaks into giant clouds, crease them, then hold a plate each in our beaks and take off flying from one place to another, tugging the clouds along with us? Let's stick our beaks into this guy's flesh and fly off with him, and then smash him down somewhere far off. Then he'll fall and explode, and his remains will scatter all over so that no one can possibly gather them up and send them to Haridwar. Everyone began to hop about in a rage, and that rage rose up from the soles of their feet to the hillocks and branches, and it turned into droplets of burning flame, which a human might have mistaken for the last rays of sunshine. It was a sight of polycrow magic, the jet-black crows dancing upon the burning embers, and amongst them, but separate, a wingless sacrificial beast, neck stretched out taut, turning this way and that, staring and staring, gyrating left and right, as if part of the crow yagya, or fearsome ritual. The shrieking chant suddenly subsided, because according to the new instructions, the location for the acknowledgments portion of the meeting had been changed. It was shifted to the dome, ledges, and portico of the old tomb inside the grove. The black mass rose up and burst forth from the trees and hills. Yet all the young crows kept leaping up and diving down towards the plants behind, which was why the tiny flapping, fluttering, gowned woman shrieked at them, "I'll crush you if you come over here," and then flying by, screaming abuses at the head of Buddy. "There you are, usurping our place in the tree, and the old lady is yelling at us, 'Don't shit on my flower pots,' when spreading shit all over the entire world is what you people do. Not us. It's your special skill, turning everything to shit." The crows cawed menacingly and flew up into the green belt. An elderly crowess with the heart of a poet began to remind everyone of the crow law. She had been one of the most badass of feminists of her time, one who had fought and won the right for mothers to attend meetings and also take part in community decisions. Also, that none should leave their egg in the nest of another out of crowpathy, nor should they throw about stalks and straw willy-nilly to build a nest. We too will live in an orderly fashion, and the man crow will also warm the egg, since the babies that will be born will be his as well. She was still outspoken and said her piece elegantly. She was more than 10 years old now, getting on. Her eyes were as peaceful as cows, and there was a certain wisdom in her wings, as in the sagely drooping roots of the bargad tree. She hopped slowly, and few knew that she hopped like that on sunny days, so she could soak all the vitamin D into her joints. And now it was simply the way she rolled,
and consequently, when all the others started hopping around like mad, she walked forth with proud, measured, dignified steps. No hurry. Let bombs burst, mountains crack asunder. There was no such panicked expression on her countenance, only a supreme calm. Whilst the other crows flew about in the air agitatedly, she stood by the human and watched him closely. Then she approached the old archway in the green belt with pensive air. In awe and reverence of her majestic stride, the ones in front handed her the mic, which was made of pale green bamboo stalks, and her voice rang out with gorgeous, elegant crow chantment. My dear children, do not behave in such a manner that the crow becomes synonymous with mischief. Soften, rain down from the sky like gentle flakes of snow, so the world spreads out tenderly beneath your cottony whiteness. Observe from your heart, not with unkindness. See how the two-footed one does nothing against you. He is experiencing a deep sorrow as he gazes thither within that home. Perhaps he is missing a dear one. It is possible that woman is his mother, and that she does not see him from there. If you were right in front of someone and still not seen, how would you feel? You might worry you did not exist at all. The other must be her daughter. We have changed our ways, but they have not. That a mother should dwell with her daughter when the son yet lives, that is a mark of defeat. Have you gazed upon his face? What a forlorn countenance, like a wistful moon. And you, Crowes stared at Jackanapes. Why does absolutely everything incite you to violence? Bathe in the rain daily to cool yourself down a bit. It's too easy for you to stray, get worked up, and lose your judgment. Just because you have ambitions of flying beyond the crow authority. Birds like you are the ones that get caught every other day. Someone gives you a bomb and says, take this, fasten it to your belt, and go to festivals and fairs and press the button. Daily your mug will appear on the front page. You just take off thoughtlessly and do what's asked. Only your beak remains in the newspaper, which you can't even see. You are a crow. Don't be an ass, or a kite, or a falcon, or a crane either. Patience, child, she said, patting him on his bowed head. After listening to her speech, all the crows calmed down. They crushed red ants and rubbed them onto their bodies to get rid of the onslaught of the mosquitoes due to the deepening darkness, because formic acid is more effective than Odomos. But they did this calmly, the way a ganja addict crushes hash before softly puffing on it. The rest of it was, well, that they had gone from jeers to ears and could now hear the silent cry of Bare's heart. The poor lost sad moon of a human was murmuring something, and all the crow's eyes brimmed with tears. Jackanapes as well. By now he had decided to abandon his plan to take revenge by throwing stones, and was deep in thought as to how he might lighten and mend Bare's heart. So much so that after giving thanks, those who had to return to their homes and nests set out, but Crowes, with Jackanapes and his comrades right behind her, all returned to the old tree in new-found sympathy, to listen to Bare's heart, because they had special experience listening to words of the heart, especially if the speaker has fallen asleep, standing on a branch of a tree.